On March 25th, 2026, a Los Angeles jury found in favor of the plaintiff who claimed that Google and Meta is responsible for her depression and mental health, awarding her $6 million. Now, this has a lot of implications, and I have some controversial and maybe not popular thoughts about this lawsuit and lawsuits like it. So we're going to get right into that in today's episode. So first, let's talk about the lawsuit. The lawsuit where the plaintiff claims that the addiction that is caused by these applications is what has caused her mental health. So she is addicted to Instagram and YouTube, and therefore they are liable because the platforms itself kind of foster that addiction and create this environment that allows for people to become addicted to the platform. And so because of her addiction to social media, she had mental health struggles, and that is what the jury found for $6 million. So let's dig into this case just a little bit more. So federal law actually protects platforms like Meta, so Instagram and YouTube, from lawsuits that are about the content posted on this app. So that's kind of things that are protected by First Amendment free speech. There's a federal law, 230, that protects these tech companies from being sued from anything that is posted on their platforms. So they've been kind of not hiding, but been allowed to have this kind of protection from lawsuits in the past. So what these plaintiffs' lawyers did instead was attack the platform itself and the design of the platform, saying that because of the addictive nature of this platform, of how it's designed, that it's designed like, a Las Vegas slot machine where you swipe down to refresh. It's like, pulling the lever, and then the notifications and things like that will kind of contribute to this addiction. The notifications keep pulling you back in. And all of this app design is intended to be purposely addictive. Now, that's what they're attacking. So they're attacking the fact that the app is purposely addictive. There are thousands of similar lawsuits kind of going through the court system right now, but this is the first lawsuit that has really been in favor of the plaintiff that is suing Google and Meta. The interesting thing about this as well is they did also sue TikTok and Snapchat, and Snapchat and TikTok actually settled against this lawsuit. So what's interesting to me is that settlement. So if it's truly something that was damaging, you would want change, right? The reason that you're bringing this lawsuit is because you want these applications to change their behaviors. But a settlement doesn't necessarily force the application to change their behavior. So are you in the lawsuit for damages because of your mental health and you need money to compensate for that? I mean, that could probably be part of it, but I would think that the big reason that you want to bring this lawsuit is so that these companies would change their behavior and change the platform so they are less addictive. So what it really reminded me of, because I am born in the 70s, is these tobacco lawsuits. So the tobacco companies, I remember as a kid, there used to be commercials on TV. There was billboards, Joe Camel was a big thing. So there was a lot of advertising, and that some of like Joe Camel advertisements were cartoonish, and so that could appeal to kids. And so the tobacco companies faced some serious lawsuits about their advertising practices, about hiding the fact that it is damaging to your health and all of those things. So what was the result of these tobacco lawsuits, right? So one of the results is you no longer see tobacco commercials on TV, and you no longer see billboards of tobacco. So there's a lot less advertising. We've also got warning labels on tobacco products, and so it says that it's damaging to your health. Similarly, the McDonald's coffee cups would say that the coffee contained in the cup is hot. So it says caution, contents may be hot. So that is the result of a lawsuit. Sometimes when I look at rules or directions on products, I'm like, I wonder what lawsuit made this happen, because a lot of these warnings and disclaimers come about from lawsuits similar to this. Now, the McDonald's lawsuit is actually a really fascinating one because it was actually too hot. Like, she had third-degree burns. I'm normally not a fan of these kinds of lawsuits, but in that case, like if you really dig into it, McDonald's definitely was liable on that one. But saying that the contents may be hot in a cup where you're buying hot coffee, some people would be like, well, duh, right? With tobacco, I think there were less known health risks back in the 70s and 80s. And so as those risks became known, cancer and lung damage and things like that, then as those health risks became known, they should have let people know about those health risks. But again, looking back on it today, and we look at a label on a tobacco product and we're like, well, duh, of course it's damaging, because we know that now. But I'm not quite sure how much we knew that back then. But the label is still there so that people understand this can be damaging to your health. When we look back and see what kind of results these like tobacco lawsuits, the McDonald's lawsuits had, what can we expect to see coming out of these social media lawsuits? Now, when you open the floodgates, again, there's already thousands of lawsuits that are similar in courts across the country, and the social media companies are going to continue to get sued. I think this sets a pretty bad precedent of how liable these social media companies can be. And, everybody can claim mental health and get money to the tune of $6 million from these social media companies. So is it going to open up the floodgates and bankrupt all of these social media companies, which some people might say, okay, great, I don't care. I hate social media. Social media is terrible. But what is the implication of a social media free world? I think it would have less free speech, because a lot of the headlines and things I see from media can be skewed in a totally wrong direction. So I watched very closely. I'm a huge fan of trials like live court, and I watched very closely the Johnny Depp trial. And when the Johnny Depp trial was going on, and even in the aftermath of the verdict, the headlines that I saw were completely opposite of what I witnessed happening in court. And so without social media platforms, the ability to see what is happening in court without a skew and without taking the word for it of somebody who is there, it's really going to be damaging to having knowledge of what is happening in our world across the board. So I think, a social media free world is a big hit to free speech. And part of me is wondering if maybe the government, gets into like real conspiracy theory sections, but if the government is allowing these lawsuits to happen so that social media goes away, so that the public is less informed about what's happening in the world. So that's a scary thought to, have all these social media companies go away, become bankrupt because they can't take all of these judgments and lawsuits in the plaintiff's favor. And they just continue to have to pay out, and then they're making no money, and then they go out of business. So, I know they make billions of dollars, but, you multiply 6 million by however many people across the United States that could have mental health problems, then, that number gets into billions of dollars. So I mean, obviously, first, the social media companies, Meta and Google, are going to appeal this decision for sure. It's going to go up through the Supreme Court. And so that will be interesting to see what the Supreme Court decides and if that judgment does stand eventually. Meta and Google had a stance that, not one application or not one thing is what contributed to this person's mental health problems. There were reports from the therapist that said the notes from therapy sessions and things like that didn't mention social media once. There was a lot of other things going on in this individual's life that were damaging. So, what part does social media play in somebody who has either like a tendency towards mental health issues and has trauma at home and things like that, where it is going to be contributing to this problem? Another thing I can see happening, which I don't think is a terrible thing altogether, but maybe just a health warning like we have with cigarettes and tobacco products. A health warning when you open the app that says, social media can be damaging to your mental health. And then you have to check the box and then you can proceed on to the app. I can see that being a very real possibility. It's kind of an easy ad on the social media platform's side where it's just a pop-up that comes up as soon as you open the application that you have to check mark to continue past. That's a really easy ask for any social media platform, just to gatekeep after you open the app. Because we see that cigarettes and tobacco products are still around, right? They didn't get rid of them altogether, but they have these warnings on the packages. So this is kind of similar to putting a warning on the package where you just open up the app, you check through the warning. Yeah, it's going to be kind of a pain to check through the warning after you open the app every time, but it's a really easy lift for the companies and kind of solves that problem where it's like, hey, we are warning people that this can be addictive. So, that once you go past that warning, that's at your own risk. And the same with tobacco. Tobacco, yes, there is problems to your health. And they warn you that there's problems to your health, but it is up to you to continue to use those tobacco products. So with social media companies, I can really see them implementing something like that. The other part I could see them is age gating their platforms. So technically, these platforms, you cannot sign up for an account until you're 13 years old. That is the base user age level. In this particular lawsuit, the child was using the Instagram application at 11 years old. So they were already breaking the terms of service. So is that Instagram's fault that an 11-year-old is using their platform when they specifically say you cannot have an account at age 11? So where is the liability on Instagram for an 11-year-old on their platform? So does that make them suddenly require age verification on their platform? And age verification poses a whole slew of problems and risks as in and of itself. I have a whole video on age verification and how that might not really be the solution to things because of kind of the risks that it posed to privacy and to other rights that we enjoy as, freedom of speech and freedom of privacy and things like that. So that opens up a whole nother can of worms, right? To age gate that. But if they do implement some sort of age gating, what's going to prevent adults from also suing about mental health caused by the platform? Because it's not just limited to kids. It could be adults that are addicted to the platform as well. And so age gating that, yeah, you're old enough to have an Instagram account, but you are still addicted to it. So does that absolve them of their liability because you're old enough to know better or to not become addicted? I don't know where that age gating would really prevent any of these lawsuits or prevent their liability in the matter. But the big place where I have an issue, where I get a little controversial, kind of an unpopular opinion of mine, is where is the parental responsibility in this? So you're suing for $6 million for your child addicted to a platform. Well, how did they become addicted to the platform? Why didn't you set time limits? Why didn't you take their phone? Why didn't you make sure they were 13 before signing up for an account? Like, she shouldn't have even been on Instagram to begin with if the parent took some steps to figure out what was happening on their child's phone. So you have all of these tools available to you already. You can set time limits. You can get a kid safe phone. You can prevent them from accessing social media. So how is it the social media platform's problem that you are allowing your child to become addicted to this platform? You are the parent. Take the phone away. Do what you need to do in order to save your kid from these mental health struggles. That just makes me go back to, is this more of a money grab? So, like I said, they settled with TikTok and Snapchat. Are TikTok and Snapchat going to change their platform? No, they just threw some money at the problem and then continue on with what they're doing. So, is it really that they are liable for what happened to their child? Or is it that you wanted money and these companies have very, very deep pockets? They don't want to go to trial, so they just throw money at the problem. You go away with your millions and millions of dollars. So, I have a really hard time not judging this parent for not only bringing the lawsuit that is clearly after money, but also blaming the platform for something that should have been your responsibility to do. So I've said this every once in a while, and I think I've said this before when I was talking about the Discord lawsuits, but I was at the ocean with my child, and my daughter was swimming out in the ocean, and there was no lifeguard on duty where we were because we were at a locals beach in Huntington Beach. And she's out in the ocean. I kept going over to the shore like, hey, you're getting too far out, come back. And then she'd come back in, and then I'd go back to the shore. Hey, you're getting too far out. And then one time I went up and I said, hey, you're getting too far out, come back. And she said, I can't. There was an undertow happening and she couldn't. And she was on swim team, so she's a very good swimmer. And she said, I can't. And I'm like, oh, darn it. And so, I took off my coverall and went into the ocean and helped her get back to shore. Well, one of the other parents at the beach said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't see that. And I'm like, well, it's not your responsibility to make sure my child doesn't drown. It's my responsibility to make sure my child doesn't drown. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to help. But, to be honest, you have nothing to be apologetic for, because it's my responsibility to make sure my child doesn't drown in the ocean. So where is the parental responsibility in all of these lawsuits? If your child is addicted to a social media platform, take the phone away. Put limitations, put parental controls on the devices to get them off of those platforms that they're too young to even be a part of, and they're too young to understand how to use it properly. So help your kids learn social media in a healthy way, and they're not going to become addicted. Again, that is my, super unpopular opinion. Take some responsibility as parents and make sure your kids are using their devices in a healthy way, and we wouldn't have this bridge to cross. So, I'm not saying leave the social media companies alone. There are definitely problematic things that the social media companies are perpetrating. So I would love more insight, more parental controls available inside the platforms. Instagram has some parental controls, but I can't really see their messages or anything like that. So there's a lot of control that I would like to still see the social media companies implement, and ways that they can help parents parent on the platform. But the way this is all kind of playing out, I don't agree with, and I will be very, very interested in what the Supreme Court says about this case for sure. So leave me some comments, roast me in the comments if you want to debate about this. I understand my stance is not a popular one, but it is how I feel about it. I think tech companies should be able to create the technology that they want to create. You can participate or not. It is up to you. You don't have to use those platforms. And so trying to police the tech companies, I think there are things they can do. I would hope that they do it on their own instead of being forced to do it. So, I will be very interested. I'm calling it right now. There is going to be a health safety warning whenever you open a social media app in the next year or two. And that is going to hopefully help them get absolved of some of these claims. So we will see you in the next one, and I'm out of here.